So I have with me today a very, very special guest, someone who you guys know very well in the face of the home arcade and arcade one-up community. I'd like to introduce
1 hour earlier.
Yeah, that's my bicep. 1 second, babe. Hello?
Now we got an arcade machine down there going crazy. It's killing everybody. It's destruction, chaos, and terror. We need it.
What are you gonna do?
My job. Game over.
I'm John D.
And damn good at my job.
1 hour later.
what did you do, John?
I think I messed.
There we are.
Okay.
Okay, we're on.
Okay.
Now we're ready to work those buns.
The senior executive. Help me out here, John.
Senior Vice President of Licensing and Business Development. That's my official title.
John D. And how do you pronounce your last name so that we all know?
It's Diamonin.
Diamonin.
Diamonin. It's like Diamonin.
Well, anyways, welcome and thank you so much for being here. Appreciate
Hey, I'm
it.
happy to be here, Jade. Can I call you Jade?
Yes, please do.
Okay, because some people have issues with calling people by their real names on YouTube. So Jade, thank you so much. Like, I've been a big fan of yours from the get-go. I love your name because my wife, one of my nicknames for her is Jade. So like, yeah, when I saw you on the scene, like, I was so impressed. I had a lot of love for your content, and I still have love for your content, even though you talk sometimes. But it's all good. Anyone can talk. So, but for you, you're fair, okay, and you have knowledge, and that's what I like.
Well, I appreciate that and thank you for understanding that. um, but when I do, I'm saying it because I do want to see these products develop and get better, and I know I'm a really harsh critic sometimes, but I feel like sometimes you just really need to put it out there and, in plain sight for everyone to see. So that's kind of my approach when I'm doing stuff like that.
And you know what? We appreciate that approach. Look, like, if you don't say what you mean and what you believe, no one's going to give you any type of credibility, right? And we take this feedback, negative and positive, to heart. We may not be able to implement it at the time frames that people would like, but we're still a small company. We try our best. But one thing I do like about this company is that we're willing to take a lot of risks. A lot may not work and a lot may do. But one thing I do like about you, Jade, is that you tell it like it is, and you're fair. And that's all I ask from anyone. Like, criticize us all you want. Do it in a way that's constructive, though, so like the people internally can take that feedback correctly. But we definitely take all the feedback and try to implement it, when possible.
Yeah, and I see that happening. Which kind of brings me to one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, just about Arcade One Up, which is when you guys started off, like when that company started off, what were your expectations? Because what were actually the first cabs that Arcade One Up released?
Okay, so the first cabs the Arcade One Up released: Rampage, the 3-player Rampage, Centipede, Asteroids, and then after that, Pac-Man and Galaga.
What about Street
and
Fighter?
No, Street Fighter and Pac-Man and Galaga. And actually, Street Fighter was the most popular and best-selling at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when Scott Backrack, who we were just colleagues at the time because I was working at Capcom, he didn't believe that Street Fighter was going to be the most popular item. And I told him, I said, watch, Street Fighter will be the best-selling one in your first wave.
So
And it did happen.
you were still at Capcom at that time.
Oh yeah, I knew Scott for a couple years prior to working with Tastemakers.
So is that how
Sure.
he got the license for Street Fighter? Was through you?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
Okay, that's interesting. So was that kind of how you had got your foot in the door, was with the initial wave of arcade 1-ups, including the Street Fighter?
Yeah, so check this out. So I've been working for Capcom for probably like 11 years. Well, total 11 years, but I met him about year 8, I think. And the funny thing is, so Scott Backrack wasn't even doing video games yet. He was known for doing like toys, right? And he had a cool toy that I like called the Kawaii Cubes. They were like these plushy things that I saw on like Target and Walmart. Had like different IPs like DC and Marvel and all that stuff. So I was at a licensing show one time, right? And I came with my colleague Noriko, who's currently the head of licensing Capcom. We visited him at licensing show, right? Because I wanted a Street Fighter Kawaii Cube, right? And so I talked to him for a couple minutes, and I said, "Hey, you guys should consider Street Fighter." Right? And he didn't even know what it was, so he kind of like brushed me off, and I got so mad about that.
He didn't know what Street Fighter was?
He didn't know what Street Fighter was.
How do you not know what Street Fighter is?
But he's in the toy industry, he didn't know, right? And also he's a little older than me, so his video game experience is freaking like Asteroids or Pong.
Okay.
Or Galaga. He's really good at Galaga. I'll give him that. He's awesome at Galaga.
Okay.
But like the 90s games, I mean, he was too old to play 90s games at the time. So he didn't know about Street Fighter. So check this out. I was pissed off.
Because he rejected you?
He rejected me, right? Check this out. So let's say about a year later, I get this call from his agent, Beth. And Beth's a great person. She's retired now, but she's awesome, right? So she gives me a call and say, "Hey, we want to talk to you about a video game project." And I said, "Nope, sorry, not interested." Right? She tries again. Scott makes it because Scott is a pit bull. Go talk to John D again. Right? And he goes, "Can you please have a meeting with Scott? He ready to talk to you." And I said, "Yeah, you guys are a toy company. I don't think so." She gave me a pitch, and I said, "Look, I've gotten many pitches of this. Like, you're a toy company. Like, don't even bother." I was pretty, not rude, but I was like, don't call me, right? And then it happens, though. This is funny. I sit right next at Capcom. I sit right next to my legal, my head of legal, my general counsel. Calls me into his office. He goes, "John D, come here." One of the few people who could tell me that at Capcom. I said, "What's up? What's up?" And he goes, "I need you to take a meeting with Scott Backrack."
There's a new joke going around. Have you heard it? What did the 5 fingers say to the face? What? Slap!
I said, "Why?" He like brushed me off. I have a good relationship with him. I want you to take that meeting. Just listen to him. Just do it for me, please. And I go, "All right, I'll do it." I wasn't happy about it. I'll do it. Okay. So check this out. So I finally take the meeting. But for those who don't know, this is how Scott Backrack is. He schedules a meeting with me. He ships this crate, this wooden crate, to my office, right? That looks like a coffin, right? Dude comes in, takes a crowbar, opens the coffin, right? Outside, it looks like this beautiful 3/4 replication without a riser of Street Fighter 1. And I look at it and it's beautiful, right? And from what I know about Street Fighter 1, okay, you can look good, but if you play Street Fighter 1, I can't even pull off Hadoukens. I can't even pull off Shoryukens, right?
Really?
So yeah.
Is that why we don't have online play for Street Fighter 1, John?
No one's going to play that Okay. But for historical reasons, we will somehow put that in. Or so we go into this conference room, right? He has this beautiful 3/4 look in Street Fighter 1 replication, the best I've ever seen, right? Of Street Fighter 1. I bring one of my QA guys over because I can't play Street Fighter 1. I bring the QA guy over. I said, can you play this real quick? So I see him play, and he's pulling off Hadoukens. He's pulling off Shoryukens. I'm pretty impressed. He plays for 5 minutes. I said, how is it? He goes, dude, this is dead on. Okay, thank you. You can go back to your QA work, right? So now I know we're in business here. So see, he's got something. And so me and Scott and my colleague Nariko, like, I'm so excited. I never talk about financials or business right away. It's just not my style. But he's won me over, right? So he goes, okay, Scott, how much is this gonna cost? Right? He said $299. I said, that's bullshit. I said, you can release this for $299? How about the packing? How about the shipping? How about all that stuff? He goes, we're gonna go retail. I said, how the hell you can go retail? He goes, well, we found a way to flat pack this like IKEA furniture, and we put it in a box, and we have a pending deal with Walmart. And everyone's telling me that you need Street Fighter in our line, so this is why we're here, and all that stuff. And I go, Scott, if this is $299, you're gonna change the game. Nothing's ever been done like this. I've gotten so many proposals from companies like At Games and saying that we could do this and that, but like they weren't able to solve that retail issue. Scott is known for, in his whole career, getting IPs and getting retail support. And I still didn't believe him, right? So I said, all right, I'll give you the license. This is how much it's going to cost. So I give him like a real high number. Right? And he goes, okay. And so me and Enrico look at each other, kind of like half smile. And we go, okay, let's follow this up with a meeting, right? I was not expecting at the time for him to be successful because I still didn't believe it. But I said, if he's willing to give us the advance, there's no risk to us. The thing looks good. If it doesn't sell, hey, at least we got the MG. The MG means minimum guarantee for those people who don't. When you make a deal with a licensor, you have to pay a certain amount, and no matter how much it sells, you're guaranteed this amount, right? And if it sells over that amount, then you get royalties. That's licensing.
Okay.
So I was so convinced that, you know what, he made the effort. The product looks good. I don't think it's going to sell. Who knows? I don't think he can do it, especially in the time frame that he did it, because he told me that he can get it by next Christmas. That was a year away.
And this was what year?
This was 2016, 17, right? Around there. Maybe late 2016. Because we had released around 2000, I think 18, 17, 18. I don't know. I'm old. I forget. But it was about a year. He basically pitched me the idea that he can release this thing in a year. That's totally unheard of, especially for this type of product, right? If it's not successful, at least we got the minimum guarantee, right? And so, okay, go through the approvals. He's so cool. He brings his development team over to Capcom in my office to do all the product testing, development, all that stuff. He really he did it right. And so the product is good, everything else. There's probably things I wanted to change in hindsight, but either way, really good for $299.
Okay, wait 1 second. I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
Where is this prototype?
I wish I had it, because if I had it, I would keep it in my office as like one of the things that I would truly cherish, because it's a big part of history. I don't know where it is. It may be trashed, but I want to
Oh
find
my,
it.
no.
I want to find it. I want
Now,
to find
now here's the other big question. And then I'm sorry, I'll let you carry on.
it. No. Just we
but
have a conversation.
did it have a BOE or a TN monitor?
It had a TN monitor. It had a TN monitor. I think all the
I knew that
beginning.
was coming. It was in the beginning. It had to have
Yeah,
it.
because if you're getting to a $299 price point,
Right.
right? There's no way you can really do a TN IPS monitor. We didn't use IPS monitors until Wave 2, I think. Right?
What is the actual price difference? Because I've looked at like wholesale, and from what I understand, it's somewhere between like $15 and $20.
It's more than that these days. It's way more than that these days. It's also about availability. Like, who right now actually uses 4x3 TN monitors? What product do you know today use 4x3 TN monitors?
You mean
So
BOE or TN or
no,
IPS?
TN.
Oh, okay.
TN monitor.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, it's still expensive. And then also, what companies use 4x3 BOE monitors?
Uh-huh. IPS.
I mean, so there is a big delta, and it's also availability. It's just like there's other companies besides BOE and Splendid and other companies that do this, but it is a bigger price difference, especially when you come into the 19-inch size.
Yeah, I mean 19-inch makes a little bit more sense, but I felt like the 17-inch range. Well, that's where I was looking at it, was in the 17-inch range, and
Right.
I was seeing a somewhat negligible price difference. I want to say it was like on average for a Dell monitor brand, it was like $20, I think.
$20 difference between the TN versus IPS.
Yeah, but also I do have to say this. I didn't look at the aspect ratio, so it could have technically been 17-inch, but
5.4.
one could have been 5.4 and the other could have been 4.3, so I didn't look at that either.
But in terms of pricing, yeah, when you go into a $299 pricing, there's a reason why those monitors that you see on the OG Pac-Man, Asteroids, Galaga, Street Fighter, Rampage, whatever it is, they're not as good as IPS monitors in terms of picture quality. They are better in terms of response, I guess.
You mean latency?
Latency.
Okay.
Latency. We all know this, but I guess the point is, yes, you had to use the cheaper model
to meet the $299 price point.
To meet the $299 price point. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. I mean, it makes sense, and I think like the 5.4 thing doesn't bother me as much as long as there's the option to use the original aspect ratio, if that makes sense.
And I think Code Mystics did that.
They did that on KI Pro.
Yeah.
They did that on KI Pro. But for example, I think the MK30 has a 5.4 monitor in it.
To be honest, I'm asking you, Jay. Do you have a?
I have. Well, I have an MK30, and
did it stretch it to 5?
I think it is. I think it does fill the whole screen, but now I'm gonna have to double check.
Because,
but I swapped out the monitor.
I'm not gonna say it is or it isn't, because I personally don't have an MK30. But what should happen, and what the company objective is if we use 5.4, and if those are the ones that are only available, which is often the case, especially with COVID, you still have to project in the original aspect ratio of 4.3.
So essentially having the option to have the 4.3 aspect ratio. So
I love that.
Non-integer
so
scaling.
When we use 5.4 monitors, there should be an option to stretch it to 5.4 for people who want the full screen, or 4.3 for the original aspect ratio. I'm always a proponent of that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's definitely something that I think would be great to see if you guys do have to use 5.4 IPS monitors, like just to have that option to go with the 4:3 aspect ratio.
Well, that should happen, and I think it is happening.
Yeah, I mean it did on the KI Pro, and
Well, the KI Pro is 5.4, so the KI Pro is a BOE
mm-hmm.
5.4 monitor, which looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the monitor looks good on the KI Pro.
It is the best 19-inch monitor in our space, bar none. And I'll just say that. And if you want to hate me for saying that, it's the truth.
No,
But,
I think it really is a good monitor. It looks good. There's no light bleed or anything like that.
There's no light bleed. There's no washout. It looks great on every angle. This is one of the reasons, like I said before, why the KI Pro was delayed. The monitor has to be the best, and so BOE, which means best on earth, has to be the one that we use for the Pro series.
Okay, but seriously, Code Mystics though, one thing I love about them though is they're really involved with the community.
They do. I love them for that. I hired them.
Mm-hmm. And
they're the best because look, they take pride in their product. They did not like the fact that there was no spectate mode. That was not their fault. We didn't spec it out. Everyone in the company can hate me for saying this. So what? Look, Code Mystics is right? The problem is Code Mystics is super popular.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing is they love the community as well as I do, regardless of what people say. But anyways, yeah, I love Code Mystics. We Scott and I met with them at what show was that? It was a show, I forget, somewhere in San Francisco. Someone told me, hey, reach out to Code Mystics, and we met with them and say, hey, you got to work with us, and they're a dream to work with. They are.
So
I always give the props to Code Mystics. I love y'all.
We love you, Code Mystics.
We do. And we love the other developers we work with too.
So you don't own an MK30 though?
I don't, because I got a lot of cabinets. You
do you own any MK cabs?
Yeah, I do. I have a Ultimate MK30 cabinet.
Oh, okay.
I own the Mortal Kombat 2 wing cabinet.
Okay.
Look, I personally don't like Mortal Kombat. Okay, as a player. Okay, but doesn't mean that I don't like the IP, because I tell you, Mortal Kombat kicks Street Fighter's ass in terms of sales, not in the arcade, but everywhere else.
Mm-hmm,
okay, so people who think that I hate MK, that's not true. I just don't like playing MK. The animations are super stiff, like.
That was good. We need to get another MK impression out of you before you go.
I have tons.
Do you want to see MK just as an IP? Do you want to see it get spectate mode?
I do, but
okay.
Again, it's not all my decision, right? The great thing is, number one, spectate mode, because Code Mystic has created a middleware that allows for easier implementation of spectate mode, is possible, definitely possible, right? Look, I'm pulling for it. Will it happen? I wish. I want it to happen. I know the community wants it. Of course I want MK to have spectate mode. For sure.
So on the note of like the platform that kind of runs the online things, actually, you know what? Before I get you into that, let me bring you back to the expectations of what Arcade 1UP was when it started. So you had this prototype, you met with, Scott, and you saw this thing and you were like, wow, $299, this is really cool, game changer. And so you guys had your minimum guarantee set and kind of went into meetings about it. And then what happened?
So Scott proved me wrong. Scott was super successful in his first wave, right? And I was super impressed because I didn't think he could get it accomplished. Because it's never been done before in the history of products, toy products, video products ever.
Mm-hmm.
He did something that changed history. He found a white space that was never been filled before that everyone really wanted, right? Like from my early days when I was a kid, I've always wanted to have an arcade room in my house,
Mm-hmm.
right? No one ever thought it was possible to make any type of replication of that's even close to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But after I saw the success that he had, he proved me wrong. And I already told him already. I said, if you are successful, you have made history. And so the reason why I joined Tastemakers is because I could have kept my plush job at Capcom with a nice ass office in San Francisco across the street from the Giant Stadium and just been okay to do that for the rest of my life, right? But when I saw how successful he was, and I said, this is a startup company. I've never worked for startup companies. I've always worked for like huge corporations like Sony and Sega and Capcom and such and 3M and everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to take the plunge on a startup. But he proved it to me. He made me believe, right? And so when I saw the success, he said what he's going to do. Scott, like, you know, I can't say enough great things about him. He is a pioneer in our gaming history. He will be a part of the history of gaming in general forever.
Right.
That was a childhood dream, right?
Yeah.
No one ever thought that would be possible, right? Yeah, it's not the exact thing. Yeah, it's not 1,000 pounds, but it's like perfect for a house, and you can move the stuff around and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, when I saw the success, and I had to really, really think deep about what my future is and what my legacy is in this industry. I could have continued being in Capcom and just did what I did, and and the success was because I'm only a part of a little bit of success of that, but the whole spokes of the wheel that happens in that company. But I wanted to go back to my roots of arcade gaming, and I saw Tastemakers as a opportunity for me to put a mark on this video game industry, which I love, and that's why I joined Tastemakers.
So was your departure from Capcom kind of like bittersweet?
Yes and no. I would say, look, it's my philosophy when I lead teams that whoever I'm working with, that I teach them what I know. And so if I were to ever leave the company, that the company would be okay because the people that I've taught can replace me instantly, and their success is my success, whether it's a part of the company or outside of the company,
I like that. So so you still have good relationships, obviously, with
They're
all
my
those
best
people.
friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I represent all the time. Look at my shirt. This is like the original artwork for Turbo. I always represent Capcom. Look, Street Fighter
Yeah,
has
it
been my
is.
all-time
Wait.
favorite game.
Let's see it. Let's see it up close. Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
You
that's
recognize this artwork?
I do. I do now that you're showing me. That is really cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool
Yeah,
shirt.
yeah.
Can you send me one of those? Well, that's cool though. I mean, it's good that it's really interesting to hear that because that's obviously a point in your life where it was like a big change for you, and
It's a huge change.
and that's like a really big decision to make for somebody in your position. So the fact that you kind of branched out and we're still able to maintain a relationship, with Capcom from the outside, and also have a certain level of influence, is a really interesting story, and a really it's just a cool story.
Look, when you work for a company for 11 years, right? They become more than colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
They become family to you, right?
Right.
And a job is just not a job for me. Like a job is like my life, right? Aside from my family, it's my family, my job, right? Like most people, right? But I love the people to work with. I love my team. Like I'm living my dream job and my dream life because I really feel that I try my best to live a good life with good karma.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that story. I appreciate the point of view that you have, kind of like on the industry, and your work ethics, and the legacy that goes along with it. And just along with that, like what are like the current kind of like goals with Arcade One Up as a company right now? What are they trying to accomplish? Because we know that they've got this kind of exclusive hold on the home arcade market, in the sense of you get exclusive cabinet designs with specific controls. Okay, so like driving cabs, Star Wars, something that you're not going to get on a multicade platform. And then, additionally, you guys re-release like your legacy cabs and stuff like that. And so I'm just kind of curious, like, what at the moment do you feel like the company's kind of goals and direction are, as far as the continued movement and development of games that we've seen in the arcades?
Look, Arcade One Up has done something that has never been done before. It's to make an affordable solution for people who want arcades in their homes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And an somewhat affordable price, right? At the most affordable price that's possible, right? Our goal is to have an arcade machine in as many houses as possible, right? To recreate the magic that you felt when you were in the arcades, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, we've released almost 4 million products into the market.
4 million.
There's almost 4 million, if not more. Our job's not done yet, right? There's so many households that are out there that don't even know Arcade One Up, don't even know you have this type of solution, right? So there's a long way to go, right? And so the strategy to grow is a multifaceted one, right? People ask, like, why do you continue to create more Pac-Man cabinets? I hear that all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Pac-Man is the most popular and best-selling cabinet of all time. People's nostalgia for Pac-Man. If that was the first cabinet, most people will choose Pac-Man because that's what they remember.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we continue to do that. We continue to make products for people who have never known Arcade One Up, and what is their first cabinet that they're going to sell, they're going to buy, and it's likely something a part of the legacy line. And the legacy line are for those mainly who've never had a home
Who are
arcade.
being introduced, kind of, basically.
Yeah. It's a gateway drug.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
It's a gateway drug, right? But our mission is to fulfill, the dreams that we had as a kid, to have these kind of machines at an affordable price. Of course, we make concessions. No, not anyone can have a full arcade that weighs 600 pounds and costs $3,000.
Right.
Right. I mean, I think that's our magic, and our magic is also being able to sell at retail and everything else.
Well, let me
But-
ask you this real quick. So, because this goes along with what you're talking about, but you say that the legacy cabinets are basically the introductory aspect,
Correct.
coming into Arcade One Up, and kind of
Yep.
coming into the like the no, so to speak, of the home arcade community, which is great. And I think I really like the development of all the cabinets that you guys have done up to this point, and the deluxe ones. They look great for 3/4 scale. But like, what about the people who have already been in the hobby, like are currently in the hobby, or have, have already kind of established like a collection? At like, where do they fall into, even in the normie category, but just the people who already kind of established like a home arcade game room and, have your products, like where do they fall into that?
No, they're a big part of it. And so, like, you know, people may think that we discount, there's a narrative that we don't care about the hardcore community. No, we do. The hardcore community is the loudest community that helps our brand. If we piss them off, it affects our business, right? Like, there's two groups that we market to: the people who've never had an arcade one up, and the people that do, right? So the strategy, like for CES, which is more of a electronic show case, those are that's for a more mainstream consumer. What we want to see also to facilitate, to get our hardcore community to be engaged, is to create cabinets that are closer, again, to the experience that they had in the arcade, with shape and emulation and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two segments of that. Yes, our goal is to continue to advance our technology with whatever available technology that's out there at a commercial price, to create innovative games that are like later in the arcade cycle. Our goal is to continue to grow this space in many ways. One way is to continue to find challenging projects like MVC2 and NFL Blitz
Mm-hmm.
into the marketplace, that, like, those are very difficult projects, and sometimes we could be in over our head, but we try, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to give the hardcore community what they want. There's always a balance to that.
Do you think that you guys, because obviously that was like, it just didn't go over well overall, like
Okay.
for you guys.
Agree.
And when I say that, I mean, like, just the overall experience of it was just very tumultuous because of the whole online ordeal and everything, which
100%.
I know is getting resolved, and that's not really the point. But I mean, like, for you guys as a company, and for you personally, like, what do you feel like you took away from that whole experience that you can use to make the experience for yourselves and everybody else better moving forward?
I'll tell you things that we did right and the things that we need to improve on. Okay. Things that we do right, and this is a part of Scott's philosophy. Let's push the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we bring all these arcade games that, like, are very complicated to emulate and all that? Why can't we do it? Let's do it, right? So at least one thing is we take the risk. And it's not easy to emulate MVC2. We all know that these are difficult projects. If you're working on Fightcade, you have to have a very beefy system to make it run correctly,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's a lot of complications. It's not that easy, right? So the thing that we had a misstep is not having online ready by the time the product is released,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We totally own that, and we totally will improve that. And that was a big misstep. But we are learning. We're a new company. We understand that was a misstep, and we're doing the best we can to rectify it and give you the best experience possible. The idea was to have it ready in time, and it just didn't. And we are working our best to work with the best people in the industry to get us where we need to be, to that meets customer expectations,
Mm-hmm.
and release it when it's ready.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that wasn't the case with both titles, but we are working on it. We just miscalculated the time frame it took to really do this right, and we own that, and we want to make it up to the consumers when we release it. We want to make it the best experience possible.
Yeah, and I think that I think like one of the things that was upsetting for the community was with more so with Blitz. Like MVC2 was disappointing to me from the MVC2 aspect of it, like the game itself.
Which part of the game itself?
So
The online portion or the offline?
so both, but I mean,
Okay.
and I say that, take that with a grain of salt,
No
because
worries. Like, I ain't judging nobody.
but
I
here's
like this feedback.
here's why, because obviously you didn't get offline, but the rest of the games on the cabinet had online. We did have that issue with Marvel vs. Capcom 1, which
Right.
got fixed relatively quickly once we identified it. And so overall, like, okay, sure, you didn't get online with MVC2, but I felt like the part that was upsetting about it to the community and personally for myself was that it wasn't really publicly addressed.
Yeah,
And then with
I agree.
Blitz, I didn't get Blitz, so I didn't dig into it, but I know that a lot of people were really upset about it because there was no online and nobody said anything. And I was like, I was just like, hey, Arcade One Up, come on. Like, all you guys have to do is just release a little statement saying, hey guys, we're really sorry, but we're gonna fix this and make it right by you guys. I don't even think there needs to be like a lot of explanation. Like we really screwed up. We didn't meet our target, but we are going to make it up to you guys. We're going to make sure that this gets online and that it works. And I think that was like the big thing, because I feel like as Arcade One Up has grown, it's gotten a lot of support from not only the growing community, but the support that the community itself brings in. So I think that was one of the things that really upset people about it, and that they would have maybe dealt with it a little bit better if the company had perhaps like addressed them in a more formal manner about it.
I agree with you 100%. I do. And I even said at a show that communication would be better, and it didn't. So I own up to that. But I promise that we have plans in place to make it better for 2023. Look, the best thing that we can do is acknowledge our mistakes, make it up to the community, and do what we say we're gonna do. Okay, like I'll say this now. We're planning to have a show, and it's not totally fully greenlit, but this is what I plan to do. Planning to have a show called Arcade One Updates once a month to deal with any questions of the community, getting feedback from the community. Like I love what Zen Pinball does, right? Zen Pinball comes up with this kind of just this produced 10-minute show and just kind of states the facts of what they're doing and do that regularly. I love that.
Yeah.
I think there's a way that we can do something like that, as well as a live stream once a month to kind of address concerns or just tell us, like, hey, if MVC2 is not ready in 2 weeks, let's just tell MVC2 is not ready in 2 weeks and just explain why. We're a new company. We make mistakes, but we're trying to learn from them.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I mean, I just think that, and that seems cool. I always just wonder though, with, a company that's releasing multiple products, it's like, okay, you don't want to divulge too much information, considering some of the setbacks that you guys have had in the past, but you also clearly want to make a change in communication. What about, like, is the company considered or looking into doing anything kind of like what CD Projekt Red did, where they had like a tentative timeline release that they could kind of adjust and, just put out in a tweet or something like that, or something informal, or like a kind of formally released video that kind of updates things and says, hey, this is what we're working on and this is where we are right now, so we want to be here by this date or whatever.
Yes, we want to do exactly that. So we want to have, and again, this is not fully approved yet, I'm working on this, but my goal for 2023, and I did say this on BCon's stream, is that we want to have more transparency, but it's also, you got to see it before you believe it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, I do want a monthly show, whether it's produced or live show, to address the concerns,
Produce it.
feedbacks, everything in the company. That's called Arcade One Updates, and also have that One Up show as being kind of more of a special show that kind of focuses on new product releases and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, like you said, there's so many different facets of social media interaction,
Yep.
and the home arcade community is a very, it's like a, oh God, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like an anomaly
It is.
in the gaming
It is
community.
definitely an anomaly. It
It's
is definitely different from any video game community that we have in this entire industry,
mhm,
which is a good thing,
mhm.
and sometimes a very unconventional thing.
Yeah, and I think that so you have all of these different aspects of it where information gets passed around, via Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be, whatever platform, YouTube, whatever it is. And information gets passed around, and sometimes the information isn't accurate because
Yep.
it gets misconstrued, or it's hearsay, and
Yep.
so there is that aspect of it which I feel like you just kind of have to overlook it because that's just the way it's going to be. But then you have people out there who are saying, well, here's the facts, like let's just unfold what is actually factual, what we can substantiate by written evidence from the company or from what they're saying on YouTube or whatever it is. And even even from that aspect, sometimes like things that you have said on streams have been taken out of context,
Yep.
and or you have said something in a
And
way.
it's been my mistake. I said
Right,
something wrong.
right,
You
like,
know, there's
but
that too.
I've seen, we've all seen all of it. Like, obviously you're going to make mistakes, you're a human being, but what I mean to say is just that, like, sometimes you can say something and you mean one thing by it, but it's just said just the right way to where somebody like misconstrues it, or takes it out of context. And so I think that that's also a difficult part of the really kind of like deep connection that Arcade One Up has with the home arcade community is, and that does separate it from like every other gaming platform out there, basically. Cyrus
You know,
seemed like he was pretty
Cyrus is great.
comfortable.
Cyrus worked for me. You know, and so like I love his approach too. I would love to see people from the technical side, from our development side, be on streams and talk about why things are happening and things like that. This is what the company wants, and we're going to work towards that. And
Mhm.
I've said this before. I said, yeah, we're going to communicate more. Yeah, it didn't happen, and I'll take ownership for that. But I bet I am counting on this year to make a big change on that.
That'll be good. I mean, it'll be. I hope everything works out in the sense of I'm sure you're playing your part, but that everybody else does as well, so that people kind of start to see that roll out.
Yeah, I mean that's my New Year's resolution.
It's kind of been thrown around, like I've talked about it on my streams, but the idea of you have Gemini, which was developed by Code Mystics, and you guys are using on your platforms, and then
Correct.
you have actual Code Mystics developments or games that have been developed by Code Mystics, which are separate from that. But one of the discussions that I've had is, is Arcade One Up eventually going to move to kind of a unified online platform for their fighting games so they can use all the same features, spectate, coin up, and all these other options that have been becoming available with some of Code Mystics, time that they've put in, like on KI, for
Mhm.
example.
Right. Like, yes, that's ideal. Right. The ideal situation for in terms of user experience is that when you go into one cabinet and you go online, it has the same features, it looks identical to another fighting cab, and so forth. The challenges for that currently is because we use different developers. We can't just use Code Mystics all the time
Right.
Jeff, I love you guys and everything else. You know, we're not their only business, and they're not only, they're not our only developers, right? The great thing is that Code Mystics has made it easier for us because they made an investment. That's how much they love the community. You know, for things like spectate modes, the middleware things, Gemini, you mentioned all of that. You know, and so like in the future, are we considering something that everything is more streamlined? Yes, that's a goal. Just knowing that like there's different developers for Big Blue and Capcom games, and sometimes we use Code Mystics and sometimes we don't. So that's the reason why you see different online experiences with the UI and some features that one has that there's features that the other cab that doesn't have, and so we're trying to figure out, is there a way that we could just make it totally uniform? Now, Code Mystics is one way, and is paving the way for that possibility. So yeah, like in the beginning, Big Blue was awesome because it has spectate mode, and I understand why another fighting game doesn't, and that's because when we start our projects, we spec out different features that we needed to be for consumer release. And to be honest, we didn't know how big spectate mode, how big a feature that was. So it wasn't spec'd out in the beginning for some of the cabinets, and now we know.
Yeah. Well, so from a business point of view, I mean, ultimately, do you think that that's probably the route that you should be going, that you guys want to be going? I mean, from a business perspective, it seems like the smarter choice, because you're streamlining everything, and people are going to really know what to expect when they're getting online play with a lot of these fighting cabs, especially where you do, have spectate and stuff like that. I mean, and even with that being said, we kind of talked about how Mortal Kombat usually sells better. You said Mortal Kombat usually sells better than Street Fighter, correct? So
I hate saying that.
Right. I know, but like, just talking totally business, it technically does sell better.
Let's talk facts.
Okay.
Regardless of what my opinion is.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So the facts are the arcade version of Street Fighter and everything has outsold Mortal Kombat by a wide margin.
Right.
They were responsible for the second wave of the arcades. The first wave I call like the Pac-Man wave, the Pac-Man fever, right?
Yeah.
The second wave was the 90s, which started with Street Fighter.
Yep.
And everything else. Then Mortal Kombat came by and everything else, right? But when you talk about console sales, yes, Mortal Kombat beats its ass. So understand.
Okay.
Regardless of my opinion on the IP.
So ideally, I mean, just from a business perspective, like that would be beneficial to Arcade 1UP as well as, back to the consumers, to reach a point where you guys are able to have basically a streamlined online, experience where everybody,
UI
right, where
correct.
everybody can expect the same features in each game, right?
Yes, I think there's steps to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So the first step,
absolutely.
The first step is to make sure that we optimize all the input lag of every cabinet, every fighting cabinet. Right. That's the first step. The second step is to within the separate infrastructures or UIs of these cabinets to optimize those, and then the next step would be to try to figure out, take the best of each scenario, each version, and have one unique, not one, yeah, just one basically standard. But we're trying to get there, but just know that there are complications, right? One developer emulates rollback technologies somewhat different than another, right?
Right.
So it's not as simple as just saying, okay, let's put it all in one, because there is development time to make sure that the rollback technology, because the rollback technology is not uniform.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's obviously not something that it would not be realistic to expect it to just overnight, become manifest. So it's something that obviously is going to have to be worked on and developed over time. But I think I just meant like it's something that is a possibility that would be ideal for both Arcade One Up and consumers in the long run. If I'm not mistaken, like that's kind of the idea behind it.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But again, like we can. The first steps is controlling what we can't control right away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've seen people say we don't update our stuff, blah blah blah. I don't know if that's accurate. I think we've seen already, input lag fixes for Marvel and Big Blue, and
Well, I think
you know,
it's gotten a lot better since the advent of MVC2 and Blitz. I mean, I feel like that ordeal kind of helped push things forward as far as like updates and being in the know.
right.
And I think that that's good. Also, the SF Legacy cab, I believe, got an input lag update as well, right?
Right. That's correct.
Okay, so I mean, but that's good. That's a good thing, I think. And we talked about communication, and people want to see that. Like they just want to. I think they just want to know. Like consumers want to feel like their hardware and software is being supported when they're throwing down $400, $500, $600 for these arcade cabs. So here's a big question then. You guys have been working on all these platforms, but what are your thoughts on Dragon's Lair right now? Because we've heard a lot of chatter about the audio being off, and I kind of mentioned to you, like, to me it I've played through the whole game. I really enjoy it, but you can kind of tell like a little bit that there's a little bit of a, maybe the audio is a little bit off, but it's just negligible to me, and it doesn't really bother me. But I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
Look, Dragon's Lair was a labor of love for us. It took a long time for us to figure out how the right way to do it.
And I'm sorry to interject, but I just want to say I love that cabinet. Like when you
Thank you
guys
so much.
when you guys did that cabinet, I was like, this is so awesome. It was like, it's just a great cabinet. I mean, it's the uniqueness, the fact that it fits the form factor, it has the scoreboard, the speakers, the screen inlay. I mean, I love the cabinet.
Yeah, thank you so much because we took a lot of fan feedback. This is one of the good times where when we announced early, really early, which we shouldn't do, but was one of the few cases where we go, this was right because we got community feedback right away on that dumb uh, cell phone idea I had, right? And so, like, I would say Dragon's Lair to me is in the top three cabinets that we've ever made, both in emulation and in the look and feel, right?
Yeah.
There were things that we wanted to put in there, of course, like, waterfall control decks, because that was an original plan,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. But there are definitely challenges and constraints on that when we come in packaging. There's a whole bunch of things that why we can't always do it a perfect one-to-one representation.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cyrus said it correctly when he was on the CES interview.
Yeah.
Trying to make the best quality according to the price point.
Yeah, and I mean, to be realistic, like you cannot expect to have an arcade one up be, I use this term loosely, but anything like a real arcade machine, because it's not. It's a representation of what once was. And so
to the best of our abilities.
Right, to the best of your abilities, and I think that really, you guys really pulled that off with Dragon's Lair. That's definitely one of my favorite cabs. And just a side note on that, the coin doors molds that you guys have been doing for a while now, I really like them because you guys have the USB inside of the PCB, which is nice because you literally can just plug a USB light set in there, drill 2 holes, and pop them in behind those coin doors, and it's really easy to make them light up, and they look really good. I mean, even if you don't want to have them lit, but it's so easy to do that and inexpensive. I really like the molds though.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's just a part of the evolution of what we're trying to take from fan feedback. You noticed in certain, like the beginning of the legacy cabinets, they had a sticker. Or not a sticker, just a graphic that looks like.
Right. I did not like that.
I don't think anyone liked that.
Yeah, that was not my favorite
All right. It's not my
rendition.
favorite either, and I'm not going to blame anyone but uh, all of us internally for that. But I understood. But it's just like, look, it's an evolution.
Yeah, it
Okay,
was
you
the
got
next
it
step.
right that we should have a coin door, but we got it wrong that it shouldn't be a print. But maybe we should invest in molds, you know? And I continue want to see that evolve. Maybe we have a coin door with a coin box underneath, you
Hmm.
know, and you know, we have all these wish lists, right?
Oh,
I want to go
that's
back to
getting
Dragon Slayer.
intense.
Huh?
I said that's intense getting a coin box. Like that's
Yeah, a
going the
coin
mile
box.
right
Well,
there.
it's not gonna be a real coin box. It's just gonna
Right,
look
right.
like a coin box, and maybe people could mod it and cut it out and make it a real coin box as they want.
Yeah.
But you know, I think like we're continuing to think about evolutions of things, and especially for the taller the cabinet and the 3/4 size,
Hmm.
like the skinnier it looks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. And so then the front panel, which we used to use for graphics to fill up that space, now we have to do a coin door. Maybe a coin door is not enough anymore because for cabinets like, T2 or
Banana
Big Blue,
crisis. Banana crisis.
you know, or things like I think it needs. But I do want to continue. I want to go back to their Dragons because I feel that's like, feel very passionate about that one project.
So the main thing that I think a lot of people talk about is just the audio issue. I mean, like what and people have said like, are we going to get an update? Blah blah blah. I mean, so I guess my question to you would be is one, is there even a possibility of an update that could possibly, shift the sync of the audio, or is it something that is so negligible that you don't foresee it happening at least anytime soon?
That's a great question. I've tried to answer that question so much on social media.
Hmm.
Look, every version of Dragon's Lair that's ever been released has been different.
Hmm.
It's because you're emulating, a Laserdisc game, and people are, some companies are using different assets or recreating assets. There was a time where digital clips, when they wanted to make this a wider game to the audience, they had to use like an Android and iOS version, which basically chopped and cropped the original assets um, to make it 16 by 9, right? Whereas we basically took the original assets. So you could see like our version video wise,
Hmm.
right, is the best version out there. To me, Dragon's Lair is about two things. Playing, it's a memorization game.
Right.
It's playing through so you see the different scenarios and getting through basically watching an interactive cartoon that was so innovative at the time, that it was like graphics at that time was like vector graphics.
Right.
And then you saw a
Dragon's Lair.
playable, yeah, a cartoon,
Uh
right?
huh. Uh huh.
But for the very hardcore people, which I 100% respect because I believe I'm the same, right? They want the timings to be exactly like it was in the arcade.
Hmm.
And those timings were based on the laser disc constraints technology of the time,
Hmm.
right? That's why you had some sort of delay and everything else. So I could see why, like, hey, this is not exactly how I remember it from the arcade, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that it really, when I look at it and I compare them all, look, I used to have Dragon's Lair on Atari Jaguar CD.
Yes.
And
You have a Jaguar CD? I want one.
I know, right?
Okay,
Um,
go ahead.
but I had it on there and I just played the living crap out of it because it was so expensive to play in the arcade. I would go there. Even in the 90s they still had one at Castle Park in Riverside.
Yeah, so far.
And but I used to play it there, but it was still like, what is it, like 3 or 4 quarters to play the game. And
Yeah, at that time it was 50 cents. Like who paid 50 cents for a video game at 1983, was it, or four? Forget, right?
So this, I mean, and this was in the early 90s when I was going to Castle Park and they had it there. And and I just remember it was like, 50 3/4, something like that. So I'd
Yeah.
play it and just get my ass handed to me because I just couldn't keep pouring quarters into it. But when it came
Right.
out on Jaguar CD, I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, like I can play this on Jaguar CD, 64-bit, do the math.
64-bit.
But I played. I mean, I got really good at it, and I played it that way. And obviously, that's not an arcade accurate version. It had the arranged version, which was like it's like a linear playthrough, and the arcade is not like that. But you memorize all the puzzles regardless. So getting a basically a port of this in a home arcade, layout was just really a fantastic achievement. And the fact that you guys were using the raw Laserdisc files, and I mean, I thought at first that the screen was like an OLED screen because the picture was so clear and the colors were so vibrant, are so vibrant. So I really think that the things that a lot of people feel are bothersome or have at least mentioned or complained about, maybe it's not a big deal to them, but they just want to mention it, are so negligible. Because aside from like the slight bit of audio lag that there may be, I do think that it is probably the best version that's been brought home. And then on top of that, it doesn't have like any issues. Like there's no bugs in it that I've experienced. Like I haven't had any, glitching out or any issues with playing through the game in its entirety. So
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Look, the thing about our company and our company's goals and our motto is like we're the purveyors of nostalgia. And when you're dealing with nostalgia, you're dealing with very high expectations of people's memories. So I
absolutely.
get it, right? So I get it why hardcore Dragon's Lair fans who are in the arcade who are also new to our segment. So there's a lot of new Dragon's Lair fans that came to our community because of this re-release. They have very high expectations, and I understand that because I'm a Street Fighter,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, like, even Street Fighter, if you look at different versions and all that, you're gonna get depending on, you can use the same ROM, but the timings can be very different
Right.
from each versions of Street Fighter with the combos.
Well,
And you
take
just have
take Street Fighter Alpha 3. We had
Right.
the Saturn version, which is largely considered to be the best version of that game. We had the PS3 version, which people also really loved because of some of the extra modes and stuff. And then you have the Dreamcast version of Upper, which had different hitboxes because it followed along more with the Naomi version.
Naomi version.
Which I really liked. I really liked Upper because of the characters that it had in it, but it definitely did change the timing and the hitboxes a little bit.
Then you had to adjust.
And you have to adjust. I think that with the versions that you guys have released, and you've heard my complaints about those issues, and I think that you guys did release that input lag fix, which definitely helped a little bit. And so you guys are moving forward with that, but I do think it's a good iteration of it. My only complaint stands that, and I'm just telling you this because you already know.
No, go ahead.
But
Like, this is AMA.
just the graphical emulation, some of like the glitchy stuff that happens on screen, but to be honest, it doesn't really affect the overall gameplay, and with the input lag fixes, it has gotten better. So I hope to see more on that, because I know Street Fighter's your baby too. So
I hate seeing that black box on Street Fighter Super Turbo during the
I think it's more on the
Ryu
CPS2.
animation.
Yeah, the CPS2 ones.
that irritates me too.
Yeah. But so I hope to see more moving forward with that. But I do feel like overall, like I sometimes have to step back and consider, like, I think the most important thing is, and I always say this, is that the mechanics of the game are intact and are being employed correctly. I don't think it's realistic to expect Arcade 1-Up to bring an absolutely perfect arcade port home. I think there's always going to be little variations. But I think that the expectation doesn't have to be set low. I think it has to be set realistically, which is that anytime you port something or you're moving it to another platform, there are going to be variations in that. But it's important to remember that it probably being emulated will never be perfectly accurate, right?
Yeah, especially with fighting games, right? Especially for fighting games that require one frame, combos and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to spend extra time to get it just right. And even the people in the FGC knows that anything outside the arcade is going to have some variance,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they have to adjust. I still kind of want to bring back this to discussion, because the reason I bring about Street Fighter, and I brought the question, trying to answer the question about Dragon's Lair. This is not exactly arcade perfect, but it's the best that we can do according to the things that we have in terms of the graphics, that which will affect what kind of graphics you use, will affect how the audio sync is laid over,
Mm-hmm.
hardware constraints, all of that.
Right.
We are trying, and look, I want to tell y'all, all you hardcore Dragon's Lair fans, look, we're trying our best. Just know that this is our version, and we hear you. I still am looking into it. I have reached out personally to people who have complained about the audio lag for Dragon's Lair. And you can ask anyone in the community. I took it seriously, and I still take it seriously, but with all of our games.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I mean, especially with competitive games.
Well,
Especially with competitive games.
so kind of last thing I'll hit on with this, and then I'll try to we can move on a little bit. But
Sure.
as far as like your guys' dev time goes, when you're facing issues with like a current release, let's say,
Okay.
and then you have another upcoming release, where is your dev time going once you have that next release out? So I know like right now you guys are focusing, I'm assuming you guys are focusing on Blitz and MVC2
100%.
to kind of perfect those, and you're obviously going to eventually have something coming out in the near future with the new legacies.
Yep.
So how is your dev time kind of assorted, like when you have things that do need to be addressed, but you also have new products coming out?
So, like, that's a great question. You have to balance it out, and you have multiple teams on multiple projects that are happening simultaneously, right? We can't put all of our resources, everything else, to fixing one thing, because that's not efficient. So we have teams working on specifically NFL Blitz, and teams working specifically on MVC2, and things work specifically on our new products, and teams working specifically on fixing, other issues. So it is basically, I'm guessing this question comes from, why can't you focus more effort on fixing this problem before you do other things? No, that's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
We have to fix and improve on our full lineup from the past, present, and future. I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, we have multiple teams on all these cabinets that we need to allocate resources to.
Okay. I mean, it kind of does. I think it's just more of like a, obviously you guys have, I don't mean this like you guys are limited in resources, but you have to limit your dev resources, like, because you don't have infinite dev resources. So I think that you guys kind of move quickly sometimes. To me, it feels like you guys, are kind of in this continued motion of releasing products. And like maybe if the company was moving a little bit slower in its product releases, like you guys would have less on the back end of the products that get released to the market. You know what I mean? Like if you guys were having a little bit more dev time on the software end of things, so when it comes out, then you guys aren't like getting slammed with all the little issues that, like, we'll just say just happened with, because I feel like those were the two biggest examples so far. We had kind of talked about KI Pro. We know that the joysticks were disappointment for a large majority of people. And, you know, you kind of had explained the difference between, you know, the ultimates, the competition, and then we talked about ILs. ILs are a personal favorite. The speakers, I'm kind of interested to have you expand on that a little bit more, and then the quality of the marquee.
Join us next time on the final episode of The Interview, where we talk about licensing, Killer Instinct, and some of John's ventures in gaming.